This is Unstoppable Stelezzi here, and we're here for the Age of Empires 3 Wars of Liberty Middle East update. That is Wars of Liberty patch 1.2.0a tier list. So we're here to do a tier list of all civilizations in the Wars of Liberty mod currently in the Middle East update. That includes all the civs we covered in the past, as well as the new 4 Middle East civs that were introduced in this update. Now, while the Middle East civs will probably be the main focus of today's tier list, there were a ton of civs affected in the patch notes. That's because there were some pretty significant changes actually that occurred in this version, namely around how artillery works, as well as some specific unit classes that, received some changes. Also, certain civs gained access to new mercenaries and natives too, which is, pretty significant actually. So we're going to have to look at all that stuff today. And now that I think of it, some of the immigrant stuff was updated as well, particularly for Chinese and Japanese. Yeah, big stuff. So yeah, we're going to go from civ to civ. I'll tell you what I think they are based on my experience, based on reading the patch notes, things I've seen so far when casting stuff. Kind of all that mismatched into like one big conclusion. So hopefully you'll come here and you'll put your inputs in because honestly, if you make a compelling argument for or against something I put on, I'm willing to change it, I'm willing to change it. But if you don't show up, you don't put in your argument, it's going to stay where it is, and people who are coming into the mod for the first time are going to see that as the new tier list, basically. So if you think that I'm getting something wrong on there, please let me know. If you think I'm praising a civ too much, or I'm insulting a civ too much based on its abilities, you need to let me know what you think and why it should be different. Yeah. I'm basically going to share this stream with every Discord server that I can, because we would love to have as many people here as possible to sort of discuss this stuff with, particularly the more active Wars of Liberty players that I've played against, hopefully. So that way we can get different inputs on it. Definitely playing last night and the past couple of days and casting and stuff has affected some of these, numbers, I think. And you're going to see them on there. And I think you'll agree with them, I think you'll agree with them. I don't think they're too controversial, honestly. They shouldn't be. They shouldn't be controversial. Especially from what you've experienced in gameplay, I think. But, hey, it should be interesting. A lot of these civs will also be updated just by the fact that Nathan, the creator of this new tier list, decided to have 5 levels instead of 6 or whatever. So, yeah, that's going to affect things too, because now we don't have a super low F tier to, put things in anymore. So things are going to get crunched a little bit by default. And I'm going to reconsider things I've done in the past as well, because, even before Middle East came out, I've obviously played a lot of these civs anyways, so some of my opinions have changed a little bit here and there on them, so that'll also be something considering. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this. Let's see how many people we can get in here to help out with this thing. Should be pretty fun. It was Nathan's idea, by the way, to come back to this. This is something I did last year with some of the pre-Middle East patches. I think 2 or 3 of them, right? But yeah, it was an appropriate time to come back to it, I think, with the release of new civilizations especially, plus the addition of new things like the reworking of artillery, new mercenaries and natives, new immigrant units. In so many ways, yeah, no. A lot of stuff changed across the board. That's what we're here to sort of look at, honestly, together. Alright, I'm almost done sharing the stream with these servers. Goal is to get as many inputs as possible. Yeah. 100% they'll see. Yeah. Hopefully you had a good day of Wars of Liberty matches yesterday. It was fun for me. He also did some Kirby Air Riders too. Did some Age of the World. I did some Star Wars, but, my Nintendo thing in the OBS acted up and nobody told me about, so basically people are just listening to noise. Yeah, it was like an hour, I think, of just like Star Wars noises and no picture. But because nobody said anything, I didn't know, what I mean? Somebody should DM me and you know what, I did after that to make sure that doesn't happen again. I actually updated my OBS setup to have the Nintendo Switch at the bottom of the layers, so it can never override anything on the screen, except the Streletsy. Actually, no, I have to move the Streletsy ahead of Nintendo, right? Oh yeah, no, or else it won't show up. Yeah. Yep, pretty much. Also, that'll prevent me from running into errors in the future where Streletsy's head shows up where it shouldn't. So, yeah. I made OBS adjustments for that, so don't worry. That was solved last night. Because, imagine if I did a whole stream of that and nobody said anything. That would be very, very sad. Or if I tried to record something for that matter, and yeah, no, that would have been very, very devastating for sure. But thankfully, most of the stream was a bunch of other games, so yeah, no reason to pull that stream down for just that. If the people want to hear, I don't know, Star Wars ASMR, I guess there's still some value there. Star Wars ASMR, I suppose. Yeah, no, most definitely. Star Wars ASMR. Imagine that there was such a thing. Yeah, I'm trying to find, I already did that Discord server. What am I doing? Yeah, I'm just making sure I don't miss any spots because today's stream is super interactive, and today would be the day that you want everybody to come in and give you their inputs, basically, yeah. Yep, this one, and then a couple more and we're all set. Yeah, no. We made some good speedy progress today. That's cool. 100% cool. There we go. That. And I think one more, right? Or two more, actually. This one and that one. Alright. I pressed enter. There. And this one. Okay. There we go. Perfect. Good. Alright. So now we are ready to begin. Is anyone in the chat or anything willing to give some inputs on some of these civs, or is it just going to be me doing the lecturing? Alright. So, to help us out with this, I do have some stuff to help guide us a bit. So I got two things. I got the tier list that we did last time in another window. Plus I have the patch notes here with us, so we can read up on it. Yeah, I know. So I'm not going to be going into this blind with just my opinions. I'm going to be using the patch notes, and I'm going to be using last stream's tier list to basically do this. Yeah. It looks like somebody's chat did come in, but I don't see it right now, so hopefully that'll just appear as soon as possible. I don't know why it's not showing up. That's very strange. Yeah, no, it's very weird. Okay. Just keep writing in, I guess, until it shows up. Okay, so without further ado, I might just do the first civ right here. And we'll do it. Alright, so first civilization we have here. Okay, why do we see that window too? Okay. We get rid of this. Oh, because it was in my view. I thought you were seeing it OBS. My bad. Alright. We'll just leave that down there until I need it. Okay. So, first civilization of the day is gonna be Persians, right? Iranians. One of the first Middle East civs that we have here. And funnily enough, if you look at last time's tier list, the Persians were in that tier list as well, because, Well, the civ was available in the code to use. It just was like completely undeveloped and stuff. It was basically just Tupi OP. Yeah, no, they're still OP. Tupi is still the way that they've always been. And I don't think this patch note actually affected them at all, so Tupi is going to be rather the same as they've always been. Yeah. That's definitely, yeah. But anyways, Persians. What can I say about Persians in this version? Well, Persians, they have a lot going for them in early game. They get a ton of resource trickles. And I also feel like their build order is super easy to follow and very basic, right? You go just get a harem photography and just go yellow tech after yellow tech at the madrasa. Also, you basically do have the option, and I think it's a good one, is using the Jihad card in Age 1 to prevent your Iljali from losing hit points, so that you can mix in the red madrasa techs with the yellow ones in a more competitive 1v1 scene. In a less competitive 1v1 scene, you can just go straight up yellow techs. So I feel like Persia has different paths that they can follow to make sure that they don't fall behind. As far as military, the military roster is pretty well rounded. They get a pretty solid like early skirmisher with good stats that they can get up to Imperial. They got a good musket, a good scout unit, a very tanky assault unit. They get some good combat cards on their Gulams. There's really no unit class that the Persians are really lacking except maybe like late game skirmisher type stuff. How many civs have been released so far? Well, if we look right here at the list, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35. So there's currently 35 Middle East civs currently... No, not 35 Middle East civs. 35 new civs added to the mod. Plus all the ones that are on this list too have been modified mostly in one way or another, I would say. Even the Hadashani and the Lakota, I believe, have like a new civ bonus of some kind. And some card adjustments. So, yeah, 35 new civs, I think. At least that's if I'm doing my counting correctly. And then we just have tons of changes to the existing civs as well. Yeah. Alright. Yeah, cool. Yeah, it's a bit daunting sometimes because there's just so many options in this mod that you sometimes forget how many civs there actually are. Yeah. It's pretty phenomenal, actually, in that sense. So, yeah. Persians. What do we do about the Persians, you know? And another thing I did mention as well is they have really good Royal Court gameplay. They're the only civ that can have 2 Royal Courtiers per age. Allowing them to mix and match stuff, you know? I feel like with a lot of the other melee civs, you're kind of really pushed towards picking one Royal Courtier ally and never really mixing and matching them because it just eats up too much of your deck with the cards. But Persia, you're encouraged to do that just because you get 2 courtier options. So at the very least, you can fully commit to 2 Royal Courtiers, right? And of course, if you want to play that mix and match game, you got so many more options to play around with now to do that. So, yeah. Peru needs a buff. Oh, of course Peru needs a buff. Yeah, Peru always needs a buff, I think. That is pretty obvious. Peru has needed a buff since its inception. Yeah. Well, Varingo needs a buff. That's the more appropriate response. Varingo needs a buff. If Peru needs a buff, Varingo needs a buff. Because that means Varingo's just not doing Peru correctly. Yeah. So, Persia. What do we do with the Persians? I would say our little Persians should go... Let's see. I'm kind of good between putting them here and here. It's either going to go here or here. They're definitely not going up. They're not going up. Well, wait a second. What is this here? I need a nerf. So... I don't. If that's some bold text right there, saying a civ needs like an outright nerf, man. That's a pretty serious accusation. Uh, we're gonna put them in. I think we'll just stick them here, honestly. You know. Oh yeah, yeah. If Ringo needs a buff, he always does. Yeah. Hear me out on this. I think Persia is fine in the good category, at least based on how Nathan is like set up the text on here. Because I think Persia is good middle of the road middle civ. It's not like super strong. They're not like overwhelming, but they're also not bad. They're not difficult to learn. Anybody can play Persians. You're just not going to be like dominating on the map, right? If you have like specific styles around turtling or booming or rushing, you're gonna get to do a lot. It's just you're not gonna be the whiz that's gonna do everything of a millisip. If you want like a really good brutal millisip, you either play Afghans or you'd play the busted one, which would be the Uzbeks. Yeah, definitely. And there's a few reasons why. I think the big issue that Persia runs into a lot of the time is that their build order can be a little bit expensive, even with the harem photography. You have to spend a ton of food to do it, and your best defense is like going with Jihad is like your second card, which obviously slows down when you can get your wood crates, which is a bit of a problem. But yeah, there's that little period, there's that little window where Persia I feel like gets really vulnerable in the early game, and if you have like hard rushes like the Chinese and Bulgarians on a team, based on the current match that a match we did about a few days ago, Persia can run into some real problems if they don't get support. Yeah, because my ally was Argentina and he just wasn't able to like support my position. So if you're in like a team situation, you're being rushed by an enemy team, you better hope that your ally can like pick up the slack for you because you're going to be sluggish there at the start. Send them up. But once you set up, like once you get everything set up, Persia's like great shape. You know, they can go full Junbaz, they can go full Tofangshi. Their Chariks are really good because they get splash attack with the special card that they get. 2 splash attack, that's a really good stat to add to a Charik. It makes them into doppelsoldiers, pretty much. The cavalry is phenomenal. Their artillery's good. They get the Musak, right? They get a really good rocket-based artillery piece that's, I think, better than the mortar, honestly. Plus, you can add any royal courtiers you want. You can add the French with Zouaves. You can add British Highlanders in. You can add Austrian Hussars, Italian Bersagliatis, or you can still go Russian with the Cossacks, just like you could with a lot of the other ME options. And not only that, the British, I didn't mention the British at all. The British give you more resource trickles and wagons to build Paraguayan works buildings with. So just going British is going to give you so much economy, so much free economy that you don't even have to train, right? Yeah, no, most definitely. And as with any other miliciv, you can still play polygamy and have free villagers with Persia. Though I feel like polygamy, it's a little bit less required. Yeah, actually, no, I'm not going to say it. I think to like, and this is in general, if you're going to do good with Middle East, you got to play the polygamy card and play into it, I think, to have the best results. Even if you use it later. And basically, the earlier you get polygamy, the better off you are. Because you save so much food and so much manual work doing that. Yeah. Probably, so yeah. Alright. So now we're going on to Afghans. Afghans got some really good bonuses and stuff to look forward to. Number one is their blue madrasa techs. They give you free villagers, right? Free villagers. And not only that, instead of being that weird, awkward mix between food and gold that you have to do to research them, they just cost wood. So just chop a ton of wood and then you can afford them, which is actually, I think, a lot easier for players to macro than have if it was like the old thing. Because I think if they kept it the old way, where you had to like gather food and gold, it would make build orders super messy and stuff, and like ruin the Afghan civ in a big way. But because they decided to move it to a wood cost, now you can kind of play them more basically, and you can say, all right, until I need to do military, I just need like 6 or 7 bills on food, rest goes to wood, which made the Afghan macro super obvious and solvable. Also, you can garrison your villas inside of your mahallas, your Middle Eastern houses, which you can't do with any other Middle East civ. That gives Afghans an innate defensibility advantage, like Peru actually, very similar to Peru. In some ways, even better than Peru because the mahallas, they're like a 200 wood house. So for the enemies to take one down, it's like taking down like a barracks or something. It's a lot of HP. Whereas with like Peruvians with their house garrison bonus, well, it's not even Peruvians they can garrison a building, right? It's a house, a barracks, a stable, a church, many different buildings. But for Afghans, it's just the mahalla. The mahalla, though, super tanky. It's going to take a long time to siege it. And not only that, those blue techs that we love talking about with Afghans, some of them actually increase the HP and attack on the mahallas too, so that they'll damage the enemies more when you shoot at them. Because yes, the Afghan mahallas do shoot at units, be it at a short range, very short range, and then they can gain more HP. So there's that aspect. And then another thing too, which we don't see a lot of, but you do have the option of, is if you do not have the wood to get fountains, right? Or you don't have the time to get fountains, right? You can actually build the bushes from the mahallas if you research enough of the blue madrasa texts. Yes, you can get your pomegranates for food or your poppy plants for gold from the mahallas. It's something you can do. You can even train nomads at mahallas as well. That's another thing that the blue madrasa text unlocks. Though I think that feature's a little bit, it's going to be a little bit weak until you probably research the card Kochi Nomads to get their build limit up by +3. But I guess in some situations where you're trying to get a bunch of units to attack and stuff, that could be good as well. We just don't see it really tapped into a whole lot. Yeah. But there's one other thing too there's actually two more things that makes Afghans really phenomenal. Well, actually, there's a ton of things. Let's go one by one. So economically, the yellow madrasa text actually cheapens your founding costs, which means they get this really odd synergy where if they build the fountains in the later age appropriately, they'll often be able to only have to pay like 177 wood or so per fountain, saving a ton of wood. Yeah. Yeah, Afghans can get the fountains for very cheap if they build them later. That's why with Afghans, you're often encouraged to just build mahallas on the front tier of your base, where the hunts are, where the mines are, so that way you can just use those hunts and mines for longer. Because the longer you sort of stay on hunts and mining, the cheaper your fountains are going to be later on when you can get more of those yellow techs. Instead of paying like 300 wood, which is still very affordable, Middle Eastern late game buildings are very affordable. 300 wood, pretty solid. You actually don't pay a lot of like wood to set up late game eco for the Middle East, which I think is phenomenal. You know what I mean? The only wood that you pay is like that 300 wood for the fountains. Usually you need about 4 to 6 fountains, depending on what your needs are and how much you have to optimize for that resource. In normal matches, you only need to pay like, I would say 1,200 resources of wood for each resource, so a totaling of 2,400. But in more specific nitpicky situations where you need more fountains, you might need to like have, I don't know, like 3,600 or something like that, which is still, it's quite affordable because you're paying a lot less than like Europeans and Latin Americans do. Yeah, so there's that. But I think the two big things is the Jazale attack functionality. All your gunpowder units for the most part with Afghans have this cool attack mode called the Jazale attack, where it's basically an extra attack mode that the unit gets, where it does about 2 extra range than the standard range, right? So like a Giselchi has a standard range of like 20 because it's a skirmisher, right? Its Giselle attack mode is at range 22. And not only does that Giselle attack have that extra range it puts onto the unit beyond the normal range, it also does more damage. So whenever you're playing Afghans, your best move, try to keep your units far away from the enemy as possible if you can. Because if you attack units within that like 22 range instead of the standard range of 20, you're actually doing more damage. And in the case of the Giselchis, you're doing more multiplier damage too. It's like 2x against some heavy infantry instead of just 1.5x. So Giselchis, since they have Giselle in their name, they're obviously the best practitioners of it. They do really good stats at that. Yeah, no, most definitely. And it does affect both the unique units of the Afghans and the common units too. It affects the Sarbaz, as well as I believe the Kalasi as well. Even though we don't see Kalasis a lot with Afghans because, well, they're a landlocked civ. But no, they can totally go into Navy too. I think they got a lot of good naval cards, so it's fine. So yeah, and the last thing that's nothing related to the specific bonuses that Afghans gets that makes them pretty good. They get this very good card called Duran Line in Age 4, which synergizes perfectly with Polygamy and a Citadel build, which I think is the best build to go for in most cases with the Afghans. You should be trying to go for more of a polygamy. You should be going for max Citadels and Polygamy if you're playing Middle East, if you're given that option. That's really going to give you the best odds of like survival and booming. But for Afghans, not only do they have the ability to get the free villagers out of the Citadels, they get a card called Duran Line that gives you free sepoys from your Citadels too. So there's the economic aspect and there's the military aspect. You can get free muskets that you can use to kill your enemy's cavalry, attack their infantry at range with, and siege their villains with. And you know sepoys. Sepoys are a strong musketeer, both in Legacy and in the 5th edition. They're highly, teams are always looking to balance them and stuff. Yeah, no, sepoys are great. And if you're getting those for free, that's good. So basically what you do is you often get all your Citadel cards, which is about 3 of them with Afghans, plus stack on the 2 Citadels you can make by default with Afghans up to Age 4. And then you have 5 free centers giving you sepoys throughout the game. Really good. Because even after Polygamy is expired and your villas are all maxed out, those will still be churning out sepoys, yeah. So honestly, considering all that stuff, we're probably going to put Afghans in the really strong category, yeah. The Civ isn't perfect. They're not super perfect. They do have their weaknesses. I've been in a lot of intense battles where, their unit roles just didn't work, but in most situations they can respond to all sorts of different needs and stuff. The Afghans' best areas would be the skirmisher class with the Giselchi. They do good with muskets too. I mean, they get a nice card that buffs the HP and movement speed on their Janbaz. Not their Janbaz, their Sarbaz. Janbaz is the Persian unique musket. The Sarbaz is the common unit one that the Uzbeks and Persians get, not the Afghans get. So basically, Sarbaz. I think Afghans technically get the best Sarbaz in the game currently because not only do they have 2 extra range because of the Giselle bonus, and the Giselle obviously giving them more damage at that extra range too, but then you have access to advance. Afghans are the only Middle East civ that has access to both advanced gunsmith and advanced forge. So they get the most tech ability for their units too from the buildings. Yeah. Which means your Sarbaz can go up to a range of 16 with their Giselle attack instead of 14. It starts out at 14, but it goes up to 16. Making them almost like the old Landwehren of Germany. You remember those? Scary unit. You can do that with your Sarbaz too. Conscripts for Peru 2026. Yeah, conscriptos for 2020. Oh yeah, yeah, Veringo could use some conscriptos, I think. Definitely. Yeah, no, yeah, that'd be a good idea. Let's get Peru some conscripts. They need some muskets badly. Ringo's Pardo micro has not been living up to what it should be, so give the man some muskets and maybe he'll do better. Yeah, totally. But yeah, no, Afghans to me are in the really strong category. If you're looking for a melee civ that really punches hard and does good, and is pretty simple to like fight with, I would say probably go Afghans. Well, actually no. I think for like the easiest civ to use, probably it's the Persians. But if you want the one that's the most efficient, without being like a cheating civ, probably the Afghans. I would say. Are you ready? What am I ready for? Are you ready to see a tier list, man? Hmm. Well, I was saying he's ready because we talked bad about Peru and why they need muskets. Now he wants to challenge everyone. Yeah, yeah. But anyways, this is good so far. We're getting some progress here with these Middle East civs, and I think overall everybody would probably agree with this stuff. I mean, there's some people that really advocate for the Persians, I think, and would probably put them up into really strong, and then there's some people that just don't like them at all and think they're weak, and they might put them in the okay category. I mean, I don't think they'll ever need a buff. The Persians should be fine, but yeah, no. Afghan's great. Intra gringo. Yeah, always specifically wants room open. Oh god, the Juanito Taco wants me in there. Ugh. Yeah, maybe afterwards. Maybe afterwards. Alright, now Saudi Arabians. Saudis. So for this one, I'm gonna make a bit of a consideration for them. So one thing that the devs got wrong when they released the Saudi Arabians, and something I didn't catch on myself until it was too late, was the fact that the Wadi Al Ajman card should have been available in Age 1 or 2. Right? And that is going to be part of the hotfix that's going to be coming out in the next weeks. So I'm going to consider Saudi Arabians through the lens that they have the Wadi Al Ajman card available earlier. Because I know that's going to be something that, so that way we can get that done ahead of time, right? So we don't have to come back and say, all right, now we're going to digest it. So, Saudi Arabians. They're the new Egypt civ, right? They get access to caravans instead of buildings, and they just use those caravans to do all their military stuff, right? And as well as most of their stuff, like market, madrasa, church, hookah lounge, royal court. Everything's a caravan except for the citadels. That's the big difference between Saudis and Egyptians, is the fact that they at least have like a citadel to base their operations out of. Because the big problem with the Egyptians was the macro with the caravan town centers just felt really bad, because the problem is you needed to use extra stuff in the UI to make sure the vills went onto a hunt or something. Now that you can use citadels with Saudi Arabia, you just right click onto the hunt and the mine just like you would with the TC. So the macro just feels a lot nicer with Saudis compared to the Egyptians. As far as military options is concerned, you do have a lot of good anti-cavalry, I think, with the Saudis. The only type of anti-cavalry you might be missing is like hand infantry, but there's a specific reason, because you have access to the Jamals, which is like a camel rider from AoE 2. It's more or less like it's a pikeman on horseback that kills cavalry. So, yeah, overall I would say Saudis are really geared towards killing cavalry, I think, because they get like 4 counters to cavalry. They get the Jundi musket from the gunsmith. They also had their ultimate unit, the Ilkwan, which is a 1-pop dragoon that has multipliers against all cavalry. You get the Swartha, which is a Arabic 1-pop dragoon that kills assault. And then you have the Jamals from the Forge, which is basically like a melee, like a mounted pikeman, like I said, or if you want to think of it, like a camel rider from AoE 1, AoE 2, Age of Mythology Egyptians. So yeah, Saudis are great at killing cav. I think that's one of their best assets, right? And overall, I think for their madrasa stuff, they love to give you a ton of free units. Yeah, that's really the theme of the Saudis, is they love to give you free units, right? If you go with yellow madrasa text, you get free Bedouins. We have to talk about the Bedouin thing too. If you go with blue madrasa text, you get free Mutawas. And then if you go with red, you get free Mushadins. Mushadins are just more emergency units, right? So another thing to consider with Middle East is you got like two different sets of units going on. You got the Arabic ones and you got the Persianated, the Khorezmian ones. For the Persianate civs, they use an emergency unit called the Iljali, and then for the Arabs, they use the Mushadin. Just because Saudis are the only Arabic civ out right now, for now, I mean, obviously, in the coming months, we're going to see Egypt be added in, so we're going to see two Arabic Middle East civs instead of one. But for right now, every unit that Saudis has feels like a unique unit because they're the only civ that has them. But yeah, no. The Mushadin is what you would get through the Red Madrasa text. And very similar to the Persians, right? At least for right now, until they like get the Wadi Al Ajman up to that age 1 or 2 like they're promising to do, people are running Jihad first to actually get the Mushadins to not lose HP because the Mushadins have been so critical for early game Saudi players to defending their base. Yeah, no, because they need every bit of range attack that they can get. And in fact, what I did was I actually added the Fist Tabola card into my deck to actually add more attack onto the Mushadins and more range too. Yeah, because I feel like in general, adding a little bit more range to the Mushadins, giving them a range similar to a crossbow, is actually quite helpful. I find, yeah, it helps them align more with the range of the Mutawas as well. Yeah, Mutawas, they're a Saudi Wahhabist skirmisher. Statistically, they're same as Strelets, but they have even weaker multipliers. They have the multipliers of a crossbow, not of like a real skirmisher. So they're like trash, spammable trash though. Which brings us to the Wadi Al Ajman card. It's a card that allows your oases annexes. So Saudis, because they're all caravan based, right? They don't have real buildings besides the citadels. How Saudis deal with their economy is they build these oases next to their citadels, and they can spawn the food or gold bushes just like the founds do. But the big difference is that the oases have a build limit of 2 per citadel, and they spawn bushes faster than the founds do. So you might not even need those fountain technologies right away because the spawn rate for the date palms is already pretty reasonable. But getting back to my point, there's a really good card called Wadi Al Ajman that allows the oases to make free mutawas instead of bushes. So if you have all the bushes that you need, right, you could literally take each oasis and make a bunch of free skirmishers from them. That's good. I mean, for people who think that sounds OP, it's not. The Matawa is like a trash unit. It's like super. It's weaker than a Strelet. It's weaker than Unstoppable Stiletzi, yes. At least I'm stronger than something, right? But yeah, no. It kind of gives Saudi Arabians that sort of Paraguayan mentality of spamming a bunch of trash for free. Oh yeah, no, you'll notice that right away when you like use that card. And also, I'm trying to think what else. Is there anything else I'm missing too? Well, I guess one thing it's a little bit of a negative is Saudis have the least number of citadels. They only get 2 citadel cards, which means they can only have 4. Most Middle East civs have at least access to 5, with Uzbeks obviously being the motherlode that has the most of them. So yeah, I would say in general, because here's the thing. The Saudi Arabian early game is a rocky road because it takes a lot of like eco and stuff to get things up and going. Also, oases are very expensive too, and you need to like send a card called Advanced Oasis to see if it make them more affordable to like 350 wood, which is still more expensive than a pound, by the way. So you do need to pay a lot of stuff. I would probably say Saudis, at least for now, are probably going to be in the okay category. Yeah. I don't think that, I mean, I don't think they're quite good yet. We're going to have to see They might, or wait a minute now. Well, let me think. So let me compare it to other civs. Like, let me compare it to like let's say like Paraguayans or something like that. So let's suppose Wadi Al-Ajman's available in age 1 or 2, and we can get the Mutawins right away. And now we're getting a ton of free skirmishers and stuff. I think maybe we could put it up here. Maybe. Maybe it can go up here. But it's going to be at the tail end of it. They're definitely not going to be ahead of Persians. They're going to be way behind it then. Yeah, no, I don't really want to. I don't want to call the Saudis. Well, wait a minute. No, I'll keep them down here, but they'll be one of the best OKCivs that there are. I think because we have seen some really good Saudi Arabian builds from people like Goimistan, Alucard. If you're a really skilled player, Saudi Arabians, they really serve you well. I feel like it's the same skill gap you notice with the Egyptians, right? But I think it's a little bit more accessible because at least the Saudis give you citadels. At least they give you some normalcy. At least they have musketeers. The problem with the Egyptian, of course, was they didn't have any backbone unit. They had like archers, spearmen, and fellahians, but they had no back. It felt like Peru, but they didn't have any like good replacement to it, like a grenadiers. Oh no, they had grenadiers, but they weren't available to layer. Yeah, that's the problem with Egypt. Their roster just didn't work cohesively. Basically, the Egyptians were trying to be like a raiding civ, but the way they execute was just really bad. Yeah, well, that's the thing too. Considering Saudis do have a lot of raiding friendly stuff as well. They actually get their own scout unit that has anti-villager multipliers called the Ghazi from the Forge. It costs food and wood, so it's technically like a trash unit. The thing is, while they are great at raiding, I don't think they're that good in general as like a normal scout unit unless you spam them. Yeah, there's a lot of units for the Saudis that you just have to spam them like crazy. Get a bajillion of them. Get like 50, 60, 70 units. Not that many, but you need a lot of them to work. Yeah, that's the case with the Mutawins. You need a ton of them to make them worthwhile. With the Ghazis, you need a ton of them to make it worthwhile. Be prepared to spend a ton of resources into these swarms of trash units, particularly in the area of scout and skirmish, to get what you want. The only areas where Saudis, have really good, tough stats are in anti-cav and assault, actually, because they get the Faris. The Faris, really good Arabic assault cavalry. It's, instead of having, splash attack or maybe multipliers, they get a charge attack. So they'll do, double damage or something on their first hit, and then until they reach a cooldown within 60 seconds or something, they'll just do a standard attack, and then they'll do another charge attack, and then they do a ton of damage. So yeah, I've seen some really good micro with the Faris, where good Saudi players have been able to disembowel armies with their charge attacks. So I think, yeah, no, Saudis are a mixed bag compared to the Persians and the Afghans. It's a little bit uncertain where they fall exactly. They're either on the lower end of good or they're on the highest end of okay, I think, for sure. I think why I'm putting them into okay as well is because they're kind of a bit tougher than the other civs to really utilize, too. But they're not bad by any means. I mean, the one thing I didn't bring up is the whole Bedouin thing. With most Middle East civs, as you know, they get these units called nomads to fatten up the herdables, right? The way the Saudis work is they get Bedouins. So it's actually a cavalry-based nomad. And they get a ton of them for free from the Yellow Madrox attacks, to the point that you're actually encouraged to raid players early on using the Bedouins and rush them and stuff. So the thing is with that, while it is a great advantage, the Bedouin push, it's very risky, because if they get killed, they also give you your housing population too. Because again, you don't have mahallas with the caravan civ, just like with the Egyptians, the Bedouins are their houses. So if you somehow get the Bedouins killed in a raid, now you're going to get housed and die, right? And not only that, you also have to consider that the caravans for Saudis are really expensive in food. So if somebody denies you hunts and you don't have enough wood to like get the oasis setup you need in your base, or even if your oasis gets destroyed or something, you're in trouble. They're extremely food dependent to the point it might be considered a weakness. Yeah, just some considerations there. That's why I'm saying, pretty much. Yeah. All right. So Belgians, our first civ that is in Middle East. So what did we class them as the last time? So last time we classified the Belgians as a... I'm trying to read it here. I don't see where the flag... We put them in the S tier, right? We consider them a very strong, solid civ. Okay, so Belgians are going to go really strong. I don't see a reason why we really need to do anything with that, honestly. Because the only thing that the patch notes said that they did was they allowed one of their cards here. Let me scroll down. Let me see which one. So apparently the Belgians had a card called Organized Secularism that now works properly. And if I remember correctly, that was not a card that was used a lot. So I don't think they're astronomically going to be better because, you know, that card is now working now. I really don't think that's going to really make a difference for the Ciz. So I'm going to still keep them in sort of this like ranking right here. Belgians overall, really good 1v1 civ. They have some really good reputation in tournaments and stuff. The only thing that keeps them from being like godlike is they're really strong still, because even on when they're not in a favorable position, they still do pretty good sometimes. But the thing is, if your map has any trade route, Belgians are automatically going to have an advantage, because at the start of the game, as well as when they age up, they get a frontier wagon, and the frontier wagon turns into a free trading post. So automatically, Belgian shipment timings are going to be faster than everyone. Their ability to access natives are going to be easier than everyone, because they can put those frontier wagons onto native sites too. And even if there's no native sites, right, or trade route, they can make those into outposts. They can make a tavern with it. So that's why I said, while they prefer their best on maps that have trade routes and natives, Belgians still have some advantage on other maps too, because they'll just turtle up and have a ton of towers. So yeah, for that reason, I think, Belgians are in the stronger category. Not only because of that, but because they have really good military roster. They get, good skirms. They're good at killing natives. They get really powerful assault cav in Age 4. The police elephants. They get machine guns. They're one of the only European civs to have machine guns trainable in, Age 3 with the Militios. They also get natives, even on maps without natives, because they can build a native embassy and train their natives from the Belgian Congo. The Zande warriors and the Songye warriors. So 3 different native units that they can access on any map. That's a good advantage in itself, and they're good ones too. They're all useful. They get a really good sieging pikeman. They get a sort of a tomahawk type unit that does anti-cav damage at range. And then they get a good gunpowder unit that kills vills, natives, and mercenaries all together. So, yeah. Belgians very strong. Muy OP Belgians. Bolivia. Bolivia. So Bolivia is the civ again that has the ability to build mining camps next to mines to get free villagers from it for a period of time, and then they expire. They also are really specialized in natives, because some of their units in the roster are native tagged. Also, they get a building called the Sociedad Folklorica as their ultimate building, which is just a huge giant native embassy where they can get higher build limits on natives, right? Yeah, no. So, Bolivians. I think we're going to put Bolivians. In the past, we've had them in, really high rankings. I think we're going to put them in good. Because they got some good plays. As a Latin American civ, they have a lot of like potential. I think they get Muchetero, Pardo. The only thing that I would say maybe hurts them a little bit at times is the lack of. They kind of have the Peruvian problem of a lack of musketeer. That can be an issue. But in in a lot of situations, they have the advantage. Their biggest advantage is the fact that they can access natives very early on, kind of similar to the Belgians, because they get these two cards. I think they're in Age 1 that actually unlocks new native warriors at their embassy. Yeah, they can access the Guarani Kachaman, which is a skirm that has the Duke of Suffering debuff on nearby units, allowing them to reduce their movement speed and stuff. And then they also get access to the Amarabulas cavalry too. So pretty much the Bolivians can make natives on any map, which is really awesome. And of course, like always, they can ship them in from the home city too. They can ship in Macaets and they can ship in the Amarabolas, which are a whole separate proto unit, so even more spam. Plus, their ultimate unit, the Illimani, is also a native that doesn't have a pop limit either, so that's good. The only thing I would watch out for is the fact that now the Kearunas are a grenadier that cost food and wood, which I think sometimes can be a bit messy to figure out macro wise, and that's why I'm putting them. That's why I'm putting up at the tail end of good. I know I might even put them in okay. I don't know. I'm sort of mixed up here because I feel like I don't know. I might put them. I might put them here actually. Yeah. I just feel like they're a bit tough to use nowadays. They used to have it a lot easier back in the old days. Now it just feels like we have to struggle a lot more to use them because they're very expensive in wood, kind of like Saudis are expensive in food. But I feel like at least the Saudis have the backbone of the Jundi musket to like hold them up, whereas Bolivians now they just have a grenadier that costs food and wood. So they got like the same sort of roster situation as the Peruvians, but it's way more expensive in wood, which can be very obnoxious. Yeah. So I'll put them in okay for right now. Yeah. Brazil. Brazil, I will probably put in. Let's see. So first, before we do anything, we gotta look at the patch notes because patch notes says that they did some stuff with these guys. Let me scroll it down so we can read it. So for Brazilians, they got some. So they fixed a bug that prevented the Sertanista from training Playos. Ah, interesting. So one of the knaves or something, looks like. Yeah. And the Zuevo Baeno also gained a stat buff as well. Its cost was increased to 160 food from 885. Increased HP to 330 HP. Range attack has been improved to 13 from 8.5. And the shipments were cheapened in cost for the Zueva Baeno, so at least some of them were. So, keeping that in mind, I think we're gonna still put the Brazil in probably the okay. We'll put it at the top of okay, and there's a specific reason why. It's because Brazil, of all the Latin American cities, is one of the more slower ones to get going. They suffer from the same sort of disease that the Bolivians do in the game, which is very slow startup time because they have to just set up everything to really gain an advantage. It's very expensive. Because here's the thing, if you want like Brazil to shine, you need to cough up a ton of wood. Because Brazil's villagers don't actually get hunting dogs or steel traps. They get the farming sickle and the plow. So yeah, basically Brazil does not get hunting techs at the market. They get extra mill techs to help with farming. Yeah, and as you know, it costs like 400 wood to set up a farm, right? But here's the catcher though. You can't just build a mill with your agricultural wagons because with Brazil you get a free agricultural wagon with each age up where you can build a mill or a plantation with. You can't just build a mill because guess what? Now the Brazilians villagers cost gold. You train them in batches of 3 like the Russians, batches of 3 villages at a time for about 210 gold. So while that's usually a good thing because that means you can get the vills out faster now and for cheaper in the gold costs, that also means now you need to focus on plantation economy, which thankfully you can do because you can access plantations in Age 2 as Brazil. That's another sort of little mini bonus that they get. Now you can't focus on food anymore because now you need to worry about gold. Yeah. But your age ups still cost food though. So, yeah. It can be a bit tricky to decide sometimes what to do with Brazil. But that doesn't mean that they're a bad civ at all. You know what I mean? And they're probably of all the civs that are considered okay, they're probably the best one because once they do figure out their game plan, economy is always going to be best in the game, right? They get such good farming potential, and they get such good immigrant allies to help their farming out too. Like, you can build a monster economy with Brazil. Also, their military is also good, right? They get really anything that they could ever want. They get good conscripts, good pardos. They get access to all the stable units, plus Royal Guard Escolta, plus mounted skirms, the Cazador Montados, which are way better than Vivanderas. Way better than Vivanderas, the Cazador Montados. The only thing it's a little bit weak is the Voluntario de Patria. The Voluntario Patria compared to the Escopetero makes you want to sleep because it's just so bad. But there's a reason why it's like that. It's basically like a more spammable, cheaper unit. So it makes sense. It's just if I had to choose between Voluntarios and Escopeteros, I would take the Escopeteros, yeah. But don't worry, because Brazil does get outlaw Escopeteros, the Jagunzos. So that's at least good. Oh yeah, no, they get outlaw Escopeteros. That's awesome. Oh yeah, and speaking of outlaws, they do get a combat card that buffs their outlaws too. Stats, so that's cool. Also, Brazil gets access to 4 outlaws instead of 3 because Brazil has this wacky little bonus thing where they get access to an extra immigrant, they get access to an extra Royal Guardian, and then they get access to an extra outlaw unit. So Brazil likes to give you 4 things instead of 3 in a lot of cases, which is kind of funny. Yeah, no, most definitely. I think if you know well, Saudis can be very strong, one of the best rush. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I just think it's a bit tough to do compared to other civs. And I think the Saudis' rush is heavily skewed towards hand cav and anti cav. Whereas if you really need good like skirmishers and stuff, you might fall a bit behind early because you would kind of be forced to send a ton of crates in and get Zambaraks going. Yeah. I feel like Saudis early on are a little bit. They either have to get a billion Matawins or they have to get like Zambaraks for the skirmisher role. So the skirmisher role can feel a bit weak at times for and a bit spotty for the Saudis. And that's kind of their weak spot. Because at least with the Russians, the Strelets have like the full multipliers, which makes them snowball really well. With the Matawas, the multipliers are less, and thus, you know, it takes a lot of spam to make it work, and it can be a bit tricky sometimes too. Yeah. Yeah, it's a bit tough to categorize it honestly, but yeah, no. Also, again, there's a bit of a weakness. Like if you do all that aggro and somebody kills your caravan or they kill the Bedouins, now your house, now you don't have a production bill and you have to spend so much food to get it back. Yeah. So there's a lot of high risk, high reward, I think, with Saudis, I think. Which, you know, for a lot of players, they don't like the high risk, high reward, so that's why I'm kind of putting them into that consideration right now. Yeah. So now we got the Central Americans. Central Americans. Let's see. I want to check the patch notes and see if they did anything with the Central Americans here. Anything serious? Nothing too serious. The only thing that really affects the Central Americans, I think, is the change in how artillery works, right? Because we haven't really factored this in at all yet, but there was a major artillery rework across the board in this patch. So all most, if not all, culverins have been removed from the game, and they've instead been replaced with the mortars that now counter artillery and now they counter buildings together, right? And the way they work is in H3, mortars will now be in H3 mortars will now be available and they will kill artillery. And then when they get to H4, now they gain an anti-building attack and now they can attack buildings and ships properly. So now technically like dedicated mortars and dedicated culverins are no longer there. Now you just got an amalgamation of the two. So, and I think why that's an important, and also for Latin Americans, the Volante ended up becoming like a heavy cannon type unit, be it cheaper and less pop space. So now you got like a trainable heavy cannon type thing with the Latin Americans in the form of the Volante, which I thought was a really cool change because Latin Americans haven't had a trainable heavy cannon since before the Latin rework when they had the Granadas. Basically, those big heavy cannons, basically, yeah. So, yeah, that was quite an interesting thing, actually. But because these heavy cannon type units are so cheap and weak, you can still, like, train them in, like, sets of 5 and stuff, which is pretty cool, yeah. But, anyways, basically, I think why it matters for Central America is because they're one of the only land civs to have like combat cards that affect cannons directly. You know, I think they get artillery combat and artillery attack. I think it's artillery attack or artillery hit points. So technically, Central America can get some really strong volantes and pedreros and artisanal cans too, because those are still in the game. What happened with the artisanal cans is they changed the cost a little bit to make them cost more wood instead of gold. Yeah, they're cheaper in gold now, but they cost more wood. I think that's like 100 gold and like 200 wood. So if you don't have access to mines at all, artisanal cans can be a very affordable anti-infantry now. Not as affordable as the Escopetero, obviously, but if you're going to need cannons of any kind to mix with your army, go with those, yeah. So I think, where did we classify Central America last time? Just so we know. So last time we classed Central America as B tier, like middle of the road. I think that's a pretty fair assessment, honestly. I will probably put Central America maybe over here for right now. I think the Persians probably have more going for them than the Central Americans just because of all the trickles, the Royal Corps and stuff, but nah, Central Americans can be very okay. You just need to know how to play them very well, and you have to know which Central American roster to pick at which time. Yeah, and also another factor is, of course, with the improvement of the Volantes and the Pedreros to be more efficient now. I think that invariably makes Central Americans better because now their combat cards for artillery are now gonna really be felt a lot better now. Yeah, so Central America I think is gonna be middle of the road good, but not as good as Persians. Yeah, definitely not as good as Persians. Yeah. The good thing about Central America is obviously they get so many royal guards too, for Escopetero, Muchetero, Conscripto, Lancero, Escolta, and the Dragon Rojo. By the way, Dragon Rojo's awesome dragoon because they're one of the only ones that kills the scout units like the Hussars at range with their multipliers. So they get a really good thing there. Also, their fort, the Poletneka fort, beautiful building because it trains units faster, has a really good work rate. That's another good thing too. So yeah, Central Americans have a lot going for them. It just feels like it doesn't hit super hard, but it's also not bad either. Yeah, it's just middle of the road, I would say for sure. Chileans. Where did we classify the Chileans last time? So we classed the Chileans as like upper B tier, right? Alright. So if we look at the patch notes, they did receive some changes. What changes did they receive? So Chileans claim to Easter Island now ships 5 Moai. Bibu moment instead of docks spawning Moai. So basically they took the claim to Easter Island card and they made it way more useful now. That's pretty cool. That's awesome actually. because now they have a nice wood trickle that they can add on to their build, which I think is quite good. Also, the really good card, the Zuevos, the Chanyarcio, has now been cheapened to about 850 food instead of 1400 food. Yeah, so if you're trying to go to like Industrial Age with the Chileans and want to pull out some good assault units, now you can ship that card for a lot cheaper now. That's pretty awesome. Yeah, so honestly, considering both of those factors, I think we are going to put Chile probably here, middle of Central America and Persia, because Chileans are a bit slow at the start because they have to be very greedy with their eco, I think, to really shine. And their Civicos, while a good musket, it's not good in the traditional sense, and it does take a while to make them feel worth it. But yeah, no, Chileans are a good civ. We for a lot of their failures in early game, we got to consider their late game. Yeah, and Chilean late game is like Giga Chad good. They have one of the best late game economies in the game, and thus one of the best Great War Ages in the game too, by resources and naval power too, because the Chilean Great War Age power is literally to get a second dreadnought in their build limit. So Chileans have one of the most strongest economies for World War One age, plus one of the best navies by having two dreadnoughts instead of just one. Yeah, that's pretty good actually. That's pretty good. Chilean Navy, number one. Yeah, also they get some cool cards, like one that allows you to train coolies from the foundry, and thus allows you to like siege enemies with them. That's pretty fun. They also, have that wood trickle with the Moai card, which is great. They got the horse mill card. I think Chile's an awesome civ. So we'll just leave them there. They're just not the best 1v1 civ, but they are one of the best team civs, though. They're like one of the best team civs you could ever get as Chileans. If you have a Chilean ally in a team game, and he's in the pocket position and he's protected, he's gonna serve you so well and like tributing you resources and like booming and then having a really strong play later on. No, Chile's a great civ. Yeah, totally good civ. Gran Colombia. What can we say about Gran Colombia? Gran Colombia. Let's see how we rated them last time. Last time we rated them as lower B tier. Yeah, but ahead of Central America. In all honesty, if I'm going to be frank, I think we can probably keep them there, I think. I think this is still appropriate right now. Yeah. Mainly because, Colombia has its good moments and its bad ones, I think. I think their best moment is when they're using their Voltageros wisely. Basically, it's the skirmisher that they get that discharges a shot and then it goes into melee with its machete and goes into like super splash mode with it. So it's kind of a semi-machitero and a semi-skirmisher put into one. Yeah. If you're the civ that you're facing plays into units, makes units that play into the Voltagero, Colombia's like S tier, I find. Yeah. Also, the aggression with the tent barracks and stuff's good. They get some cool cards, I think, that help you out early on. It's just, I feel like still Colombia is a bit limited at times, and it feels like it takes a bit to get off the road running, I think. Yeah. I think you need to get an established economy with them first, because I feel like for Colombia to really do well, you gotta set up the mills and get the turtles from the Galapagos card going, and that can be a little expensive. Otherwise, they play too basic, I think, and they can suffer a bit sometimes. Yeah. I mean, they're not bad by any means. It's just, I don't know. I feel like there's times where Colombia feels a bit clunky at the start, even with the tent barracks and stuff. And then once I get like multiple mills putting out like Galapagos, and I get like steel traps, and I get Furrier, and They're late cards like that, then they feel like they're on fire at that point. Yeah. So it takes a little bit to get them up to speed, but once you do, it's good. Yeah. Also, another thing I like about Colombia is the fact that they have multiple ultimate units, and they have a lot of immigrant options too. Because here's the thing: if you like, if you like having immigrants and you like having multiple ultimate units, you can still have three immigrant colonies and have three ultimate units with Colombia if you play them right. Because honestly, I do not like the Independentistas anymore. I loved them when they were before the Lamb rework. They were awesome, and now they're just like boring, so boring and tiresome to use. Yeah, no, like God, they're so poor. They're so poor. It's like what do we even use these guys for? You know what I mean? So you know what I end up doing? I skip Colombia's ultimate unit, the Independista, and I just go Ecuador, Venezuela, Panama with my ultimate units, and then I'll pick an immigrant that I want, which I think would be France, right? I think it's French or something. Yeah, because hey, French immigrants I think are going to serve me a lot better than those Independentistas, honestly. And then not only that, you can get advanced immigrants like you can with most lab civs and get the Spanish immigrants, and you can get a German colony too. You can get German immigrants from Colombia because they get a card that unlocks them in age 2 from the home city. Yeah. They're one of such 2 cards in the game right now that unlocks an additional immigrant colony for your civ. The other one belonging to Mexico with the Irish. So Colombia gives you so much unit variety. That's why I think is like Colombia's greatest strength actually. It's not even the tent barracks thing. Yes, it is the tent barracks thing, but it's really unit variety. You can get so many diverse setups with Colombia. It's kind of the same way as Uruguay, but instead of just being limited to immigrants, it's also just units in your roster too, which is cool. Yeah. I guess the only thing that can be troublesome at times is if you want like a real skirmisher that acts like a real skirmisher. Because the Voltagero sometimes can get itself killed if the enemy has a lot of cannons or they have like really good plays and stuff. So yeah, that's the one consideration I would have, I guess, too. But yeah. Overall, Colombia can serve you very good, especially if you know how to use them, right? Yeah. Okay, now we're on to Ethiopia. Ethiopia. Ethiopia we had at the peak of A tier, right? Yeah, the peak of A tier. I think for right now, it seems like we could probably put Ethiopia. I might actually put them ahead of Belgians just because Ethiopia has some really good turtle capabilities. Yeah, like when you know how to play them right, Ethiopia is like a scary civ. Oh my god, you get Eternity in there playing late game Ethiopia in a team game. Oh my god, it is just brutally bad. Scary what they can do. The level of turtling they can perform with so much towers and forts and palaces and oh god, Ethiopia is a monster civ. Yeah, I'll put them ahead of Belgium because before I always made the bad assumption that they were bad and early for some reason because of the turtling focus, but turns out if you have common sense like Alucard and Eternity and stuff with the Ethiopia civ, you basically rule the game with this civ. They also have some okay fast fortress plays too, because last year we experimented with Ethiopia Fast Fortress. Ethiopia Fast Fortress is actually a really interesting idea that you can run in some situations, and it's really good. So I'm willing to put Ethiopia in a high position ahead of Belgians. Yeah. Yeah, because they do get a musket, they get the Neftanya, so they do have a backbone. They have archers, they have spearmen, they have camel riders, which are Cossacks. And then in mid to late game, their unique units are fire. The Oromo, wonderful assault unit, like a Lancer almost, with the full infantry multipliers. You got the Tigray Lancer, deadly anti-cav. They get an anti-skirm with the Mehel Safari. So much good stuff with Ethiopia. It's hard to find fault with the Ethiopians, Plus they can turn their TCs into like Ottoman ones, sort of, and have them make free vills and stuff through the Goa migration card. Oh yeah, Ethiopia's fine. They're just good, you know. That's a strong Africa design right there. Was how they did Ethiopia for sure. And Ethiopia's always been top of their game too. I think in the right hands, Ethiopia's always just been good. Yeah. All right. So now we got the Americans, United States of America, to the republic for which we stand. We will stand you in okay, because this is sort of where we put them before, right? We put them in okay. And there's a few reasons why we're doing this. So, I think the big problem is that America just uh it feels like in general their military situation can get a bit iffy at times. Yeah, especially early game, because well, they do get early access to an assault unit with the Louisiana Tiger, which sometimes is great, sometimes it's not great. I feel like USA roster is kind of niche. Sometimes it serves you well, sometimes it doesn't. Yeah. USA is an inadvertently very anti-infantry focus and very anti-assault focus. But as far as like fighting like the standard way with like muskets and stuff, you really don't get access to riflemen until age 3. So yeah, I feel like at times USA's roster just allows them to win the game easily, and other times it just falls behind. Yeah. It's like two realities in one. Yeah. Also, well, they do get extra technologies, which leads to stronger military and economy later on, because they get like an extra mill tech, an extra market tech, extra arsenal tech, all that. Plus the great companies, of course, that give them even more technologies. That's all for the later part of the game. That has nothing to do with the early game. Yes, they do get that like super El Cheapo 100 wood, 100 gold military upgrade between veteran and no upgrade, which I guess helps. But extra 5% stats, like really? I don't care. I don't care about 5% stats. I really don't. And I don't think it helps. It helps, but it doesn't. So, yeah, I just think the US Civ is all talk and no show, I think. They talk about having so much technological advancement, but it never really seems to help me out very much in like half my games. So I'm gonna keep them down there for now. Yeah, I will love to see what USA looks like in the Anglophony removal, and once they become like part of the American culture. I think once that happens, maybe USA is gonna like be really good. But who knows what they're gonna look like then? There's gonna be so much stuff they're gonna have. I don't know what they're gonna look like. They're gonna be quite an interesting civ. So yeah, yeah. Argentina. Let's see Argentina. So where do we keep them in the past? We had Argentina in B tier, right? So Argentina, compared to all these, let's see. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think about Argentina right now. So when we last did Argentina into tier list, they still had all the original setup with their herdable cards. Yeah. Now they're a totally different civ where they're pastures, fattening animals at a double rate, right? Pretty big. Also, the butcher's card trades all your food for gold. That's a big change. They removed the thing that allows you to pick up your herdable, to gather your herbables instantly with the butcher's thing. So that's sad. Solidaros, I think, is still the same though. Yeah, no, Solidaros is still the same, right? Yeah, let me check. I think they did something within the patch notes. Let me check it actually. Actually, they did make some changes to Argentina in this version. So they moved Solidaros to H3. Oh my god, that is so scary. Because before, what made Argentina like really feel tough was the fact that their herdable economy was so lazy and easy. Yeah. So that means that their herdable economy is slightly less optimal. you know. That's not going to be good. Like with my rating, because if you hurt the Argentine herdable economy, that's like their whole thing. I'm gonna knock them down a few pegs. Yeah, I am. But they did do some other changes here too that we have to discuss. So Great War Age Tech ice boxes now increases cow build limit instead of increasing cow inventory. That is good. That is very good. You know why? Because they've been trying to work on that tech for years, probably years at this point, and it's bugged every time they try to fix it. It just doesn't work. Yeah, no. The fact that they finally decide to take the iceboxes tech and make it into something that's gonna work, that is good. Finally, that tech is actually worth something now. That's an improvement for like late game. Also, the Choiquiero has been made more expensive. I think it's like a two pop mounted skirm now, but they increase its stats to 24 base range attack and 165 base HP instead of 110. But they also cheapen the shipments as well. Wow, that's interesting. Oh, that's interesting. They actually adjusted its shipping costs to be cheaper, but the units are stronger now. I like that. So Choiquiero plays better now. That's good. So a little bit of bad, a little bit of good with the Argentines. I think that's fine. So what do we do about them then? What do we do about this civ? Where do we put it in the list? We put them probably. I'm gonna put Argentina. Where do we put them? We put them at the edge of B tier, right here. So what I'm gonna do is, I am going to. I might still put them here, I guess. Yeah, is that right? Yeah, because I feel like their herdable economy is still an asset. I think now you just have to play more in the hunts in the early game, and then you'll have the reward of the herbables a little bit later on. Because I think you should still be sending the Cimarrones card and getting the pasture at the start to fatten up the cows and start spawning them. The thing I like about Argentina in early game, which I think is something that puts them ahead of a lot of these other Latam civs in the mid game, is the fact that they have Patricios, which is like a Janissary statted like musket. It's not quite as strong as the Janissary, but it's just under it. And I think that gives Argentina always a great advantage in military. Yeah. Yep. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, Persia gets like the advantage of having really good food trickles, gold trickles, wood trickles, even trickles from their churches, because of course they get really good church trickle bonuses and stuff too for the Madrasatex and the home city. Plus really good military. So yeah, no. I mean, Argentina's good. I don't think they've lost their spunk at all. In fact, they probably are a bit better in the home city game now because their Choiqueros feel a lot more worth it now to ship in. So we'll probably see a lot more mounted skirmisher shipments in games with really skilled Argentina players. Plus, if you do get to Great War Age, now your icebox tech actually improves your food economy because now you can have more cows, which is going to make your pastures feel a lot nicer. Yeah. Because before the effect they wanted to have was they wanted the cows to have more food, and it kept bugging. Every time they tried to implement it, it just kept having bugs. So, yeah, that's going to stay there. All right, so Australia. Australia needs a buff. This is staying down here. This civ is trash. It's not trash, but it's very niche. It's a very niche civ. Yeah, because I think they suffer from the same stuff United States does early on in early game, but let's keep that there. Basically, their units were even more niche. because you get the boomerang, which is a skirmisher, and then you get the bushranger, which is a skirmisher. So there's not even a choice really. There's there's no like upfront choice. You got the boomerang, which does the hack damage, and you have the bushranger, which is a good skirm, but not super good one. And then obviously no musket in H2, so you can be cut at the ribbons if you're not careful, basically. Yeah, they need a buff of some kind because I feel like the Rico's very slow. Their early roster can suffer a bit. You're kind of forced to go fast fortress fire stick. I find a lot with these Australians, or go fast fortress into the rum quartzman to fight Cav, and it works sometimes and sometimes it doesn't. Yeah, it's a bit tricky. Yeah, no, Australians are a really tough one to work with. Plus, for some reason, their late game economy feels really poor. Yeah, because even when you research cards like eucalyptus oil and stuff, which are supposed to be extra bits of help for you, I don't know. It just feels like the Rico's like really poor. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. They just generate. I hope they still don't have that remnant bug where they gather less or something. Yeah, no. Yeah. Where Australia really shines is like fish booming. So yeah, that's all I have to say about them. I know there's a lot of people that like the Australia Civ and they might advocate for them, but that's at least what I say about them. Yeah. Austria-Hungary. Where did we class them last time? Austria-Hungary we had in B tier behind Argentina. What changes happened in the patch notes of Austria-Hungary? Anything at all? Looks like nothing at all happened with. Oh, wait a minute. No, there is something to consider here. Oh, wait a second. Wait a second. There is something here. The bombardment of Prague. Oh, God. No, that is. Oh, yeah, that's right. Just remembered the bombardment of Prague. Oh, no. Okay, so if you didn't know, there's a card called the Bombardment of Prague, right? It allows the mortar to do an area of effect. It gives it an area of effect. Mortars an area of effect of like 4 or 5. Makes them into like nuclear bomb level splash attack. Now those can attack units because now they're culverins. Oh god. Alright. I might need to put that like I mean I might need to put that like I might need to put that ahead of Persians now. Oh god. Because Austrians early on have a really good setup. But yeah, no. Oh wait a minute, no. We'll put it ahead of Argentina. Let's not be hasty because before I had them here, now they go right here. Okay, because I feel like that's such a strong late game play. Now that's probably going to put Austria ahead again. Because now they got something really cool and unique that's going to help them out in late game. So yeah. Otherwise, everything, the free hussars with shipments, all that stuff, pretty much standard quo Austria-Hungary. But I think the bombardment of Prague now is going to be a much better play now. Oh god, yeah. I just thought of that. I was like, wow. Yep, pretty much. Yeah, if you didn't know, Austria-Hungary's main thing is getting free hussars with their cards. Kind of like vanilla Germany, plus they get Royal Guard veteran upgrades instead of guard upgrades, so they get the RG and age early, which, can be helpful, can be detrimental depending on what you think about the macro aspect of it, yeah. I don't like Austria-Hungary because their roster is super bland and standardized, yeah. That's just me. British. So when did we classify British as last time? We classified them as an A tier civilization, right in the middle. So that was a long time ago. Actually, that was before. That was before they gave them the factory bonus. That was actually a real that did not age well at all for British. Actually, that did not age well at all. Not at all. Not at all. So British are gonna go into. What do we do with the Brits actually? Do we put them ahead of the Afghans maybe? Maybe we do. Maybe we do. I think we put them ahead of the Afghans because if you didn't know, British and Wars of Liberty can build factories with their Explorer. And not only that, they actually got a weird rework in this version. So if you look at the patch notes, right? They did some interesting stuff with the British. So they changed the Congreve rocket because here's the thing: if they kept the Congreve rocket as like a heavy cannon, they would have gone up into here. But because they turned it into like sort of a culverin mortar, they're probably fine still staying down here. But they're going to be at the front of the line now. Yeah. So basically, in the last version, you could build two factories in Age 2 with the British and Age 2 with the Explorer. But now, because they reworked the system where you unlock additional factories with cards, right? That means now you can get three factories in Age 2. Three factories in H2 churning you out economy. Yeah, that's even better for the Brits now. But they got rid of robber barons, which means now you basically don't have six you don't have a six factory bill limit with British anymore. So the late game for British has suffered a bit, but the early game has gone up. And obviously, in a lot more cases, that early game factor is going to matter a lot more than the late game. So that is a big consideration. Also, the rockets being turned into Culverin Moors now. Kind of a nerf in a way, but a good one. One that makes the Civ feel like it's honest and fair now, which is good. They did change some of the cards, like the one that gives you the bank. They they updated the Swiss marriage and the Swedish marriage, the ones that gave you like trickle buildings, to give you one building now, but just made them better. Right. Also, British can get new natives, right? They can ship in Assyrian allies and they can ship in Wahhabi allies from the home city. So now they get some really good native options. They get a scout unit with the long range spear, and they get his wave basically in the Assyrians. So, yeah, no, Brits are looking beautiful right now. Brits are like a really tough civ, for sure. Bulgaria? What do we do with Bulgaria? Last time we put Bulgaria behind Brazil in the B tier. Honestly, Bulgaria, I think we're gonna do that again. I think, but question. Do we put it ahead or? I might put them behind Saudis. Yeah, it might go behind the Saudi Arabians. You know why? Because I feel like Saudi's early rush has a lot more oomph to it, and it can potentially be deadlier. Yeah, and it's a lot less niche too. Because here's the problem with Saudi Arabians. No, not Saudi Bulgarians. Bulgarians are super niche because they have to wait an extra age to unlock their units. Except for the Carbonire, they can still get the Carbonire in age 3, but everything else, they have to wait an age to get, which kind of puts them in a pickle. Yeah. So yeah, no, I feel like Bulgarians, they have their good moments and they have their bad moments. Yeah. What really makes Bulgaria viable is their Samara Banner cards, like turning all their Opalshand infantry into Scythemen and then just raising somebody's base to the ground and killing everything, including the Cav. That makes them good, but yeah. Yep, nothing really. They didn't change anything in this patch for Bulgaria, I think, so that's gonna just stay where it is. Yeah. How about Canadians? The Oro Crony Civ. Did they do anything with the Oro Crony Civ 2.0? They did nothing. They just added a hotkey onto the marked territory where the dog pisses on the ground thing. Where did we class Canada last time? We classed Canada as an A tier civ. You know what? We're gonna put we're gonna put we're gonna put Canadians probably. We'll put them here. We'll put them in the really strong because Canadians usually have one of the strongest early games with their Troupe Dion Marine Rush, backed up by building all the log cabins to trickle wood. Yeah, because Canada doesn't have normal houses, they build log cabins which actually trickle wood for them. They have age ups that cost wood instead of food. Yeah, Canada's always been a strong contender, I think. And I honestly think Canadians often outperform Belgians by and large because the Canadian unique unit roster is actually effective on both factions, not just the French one, which is usually the more favored one, but the British one too. Like, really, every unit I think really does the Canadians good except for the foot guard usually. But the foot guard sometimes is good, it's just rarely ever needed, rarely ever useful. It's more niche. But yeah, no, Canadians strong civ. Good economy, good military, good build up, good macro, good build orders. Fine. Plus lots of team cards too. That's another thing that makes Canada really exceptional. Is their team card. Because Canadians are a very team friendly civ because of all their team cards. Yeah. But you know what is also a team card civ? The Danish. Yeah, the Danish are another team card civ. But Danish are, they're down here. Yeah, they're kind of down in this neck of the woods, honestly. They're okay, but they're kind of weak. You know, their Lansoldat tar musket, it's very spammable, but it's not that strong. They do get some good late game potential with their military upgrades, but it takes a bit of time to set up. They yeah. They can make falconets in H2, but again, it's an expensive setup with the team early artillery card. It's something we sometimes see used very well, but it does take time to do. And often in that time, your enemy will just fast fortress anyways and punish you with like H3 falconets with more stats. So yeah, I have a pessimistic view of the Danish, and but here's the thing. Here's the thing I'm gonna do. I might actually put them ahead of all these just because they're a European civ at least, and they have all the basic advantages of Europeans, like they have hussars, dragoons, cuirassiers, skirmishers, grenadiers. They have good grenadiers, yeah. Oh, I didn't even think of that. You think maybe we could, I don't know. Maybe we'll put them here actually. Maybe we could put them like here. That's a good point. I didn't consider the Ox card economy. No. I might put them at the Colombians then. Yeah, no. I'll put them up there. Saying that they're a bit more reliable than the Colombians, yeah. That's true. They're European. The guy European common unit rosters are often good, but let's keep them up there. Just like that, yeah. Alright, so the Dutch. The Dutch civ. The Dutch can go, let's see. Put the Dutch maybe. We could put the Dutch right here. Yeah, Dutch are very strong. See, what makes the Dutch really good is they have specialized villagers. They cost one each of the one resources. They got the settler that costs food and does 30% better farming. They have the Javanese labor that does 30% better wood chopping while costing wood, and then they have the African slave that costs gold and does plantation and mining economy 30% better. So Yeah, yeah. Dutch economy really does well. Plus, their flanker musket has especially good kiting capabilities because it has extra range and extra movement speed too. So it's like basically taking the old German Landwehren and combining it with the Ashigaru in terms of movement speed, making them very deadly to them. They can actually move faster than Ashigarus once you get that Suderij Mobile card. So yeah, plus they get 3 ultimate units instead of 1, giving them a really strong late game military push, giving them like access to like an infernal type mounted pikeman cav. A Mushatero, they have a Mushatero of their own, which costs only wood, that does 2 splash, making it really exceptional. And then they have a musket that has extra hand armor, making it tanky, like really tanky against like attacks and stuff. So yeah, no, Dutch are a very strong one. Oh, Golden Ages too. Yeah, yeah, that's why I'll put Danish up there. Yeah, no, right. So yeah, yeah, Dutch are really good. Just saying. And I don't think they really changed much in this patch with them. Did they change anything with them in this patch besides the Culverin thing? Obviously. Let me just check. Nope, nothing. Nothing's changed. So that's fine. That should stay up there probably. Egypt. Okay, why is there an Ethiopia here? Why is there next to Ethiopia? We'll just put Ethiopia next to Ethiopia. I just noticed that. Like, why did you put Ethiopia? We'll put Ethiopia next to Ethiopia. Okay. But yeah, no, we'll just take it out of there. Make sure you fix that. That's kind of weird. Egypt. So Egypt will go into need a buff because it's just really tough to use. Their only play is fast industrial with the library caravan, and it's just really garbage. It's nasty garbage to do otherwise. Because Egypt makes everything so much more painful in terms of macro, placing the villagers, picking things. Their roster kind of stinks in most cases. Yeah, no, Egypt is like not that good. If you want a good caravan civ, play Saudi Arabians, don't play Egypt. Egypt will be getting an update in the coming months where they become a Middle East civ and have a completely different level of gameplay and stuff, completely different roster. Then Egypt will probably like move way up in the tiers, but until then they're just bad. Yeah. Yeah, alright. The second one is better than the first. Oh, yeah, I can see that. So we'll just replace the flag here with this one. Alright. Okay, sounds good. Alright. Yeah. No more words about Egypt, though. Now we move on to the French. The French can go. Where did we put French last time? Because we do need to consider one thing here. French was S tier ahead of Bolivia at the time, but behind Belgians. Now, the one thing that happened with the French in this patch, two things actually. Let me check this. So now the Zwave shipments. The Zwave shipments are cheaper now. And the Zwaves are stronger in stats. So they're like 2 pop units instead of 1, I think. Okay, that's actually a huge factor because waves is one of the reasons why we play French is to ship tons of waves at the enemy. So now your wave shipments are now cheaper and more valuable too. Oh, that's good actually. That's good. Like did they is there any other like consideration up here about I'm trying to look at something here. So this is millies. Overall, I would say. Yeah, that's actually a buff to the French because now those waves are actually just better now. Yeah. Nice. Yeah. Also, another thing too, the French got a new native unit in their settlement because if you remember correctly, the French for the longest time had the Huron natives, and then they got removed for that African cavalry native that they had, right? So what happened now is now the French have access to Lebanese Maronite natives now. They have an infinite 23 Maronite shipment in late game. So now they have infinite natives once again. So the French have been improved in that aspect. Plus, they have some other new Middle East natives too. A 6 Druze shipment and an 8 Alawite shipment. So now more natives in the home city plus stronger waves. I think, that is enough to maybe move French above the Belgians, perhaps. Yeah, no, I'll put them up here. Because, France has always been famous for being, the middle of the road civ. They don't have strong bonuses, but they don't have strong weaknesses either. So I think that holds true. And that honestly makes French a really strong pick all the time. And I think with the stronger waves now, that's just going to make their gameplay better, plus the new native shipments. So maybe enough to make them just slightly better than the Belgians, yeah. Just strong because France is the strongest country. Yeah, unless you count World War II. Then they just raise the white flag and surrender. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry I had to drop that bomb on you, but alright. Let's see. Greece. How about the Greeks? So the Greeks didn't receive any balance updates of any kind. But we know Greeks are really good fish boom civ, and where did we place them last time? We put them right behind the Mapuche in the A tier, right? I would say, this is a tough one because on water maps, they're like up here, and then on land maps, they're like down here. So what do we do? I think the fairest thing is to just put them right back here. Yeah, because I've had some good times with Greeks on land maps before. It's just that they're not like super strong. Yeah. I'll make this the middle ground here. Make a compromise, yeah. I'll keep it as a compromise, yeah, most definitely. Yeah, alright. Okay, so India. Yeah, because the reason why Greeks are in the middle ground is because their they get free fishing ships from their docks. That's like an insane bonus. It normally puts them up to here when they're on war maps, but on every other situation, they're kind of in this area. So to kind of put it in the middle, we're gonna just leave it here. I think. Yeah. Yeah, just the puns, but they're it's more. Yep, that's true. Yeah, no. But the thing is, they don't need like a full. They don't need a full. They don't need like a full water map to do good. They just need like a small pond that has fish in it, and that's enough to keep them going for a bit. So. Yeah, like Hudson Bay doesn't have a huge water. It just has like one area, but it's enough to get them through the early and mid game until they can move on to crops. So that's what you gotta consider. Yeah. Yeah, and also the one thing it holds back Greece, I think. Well, actually, they did get buffed. Now that I think of it, they did get a buff this patch. Their Chorophylaxis shipments now include more units. Yeah, so now their Chorophylax shipments are more valuable now. That was a slight improvement to them, so yeah, I think that's probably fine. Yeah. India. India. India, we had a head of Greece, so we'll probably just keep that the same because he didn't really receive any new patches. The only thing that really affects them here is the fact that, wait a minute, did they change anything with India at all? Let's just check real fast. Town Center no longer crashes the game in random instances. But, hey, that's a buff in itself. But yeah, no, basically the only difference is the French consulate for India delivers less waves, but they're now stronger in stats. So, yeah, I think that means they really shouldn't have to move anywhere too much, yeah. Okay, so Portuguese. Or which one are we on? We're on no, Italians. We're on Italians now. Wait a minute. Why are we up here for in the patch notes? I gotta climb back up. So Italians. Did Italians receive any updates at all? Any updates at all for Italians? Italianos. Let's see. Italians. Let's see. Nope, they didn't receive any updates. And last time we put Italians Let me see. Trying to find the tabby window. Here it is. So last time we put Italians behind the Central Americans just because, they're European, but they, takes a while to set them up and stuff. And it can be a bit frustrating at times with all the wagons and stuff, but at other times they're great because of their long range on the Alpini and stuff. Yeah, we'll just leave Italy here. I think this is fine. Kind of middle the road civ. Not really good, but still okay. Well, they're better than okay, but they're, that's fine. Right, yeah, most definitely. Yeah. Koreans. Urochrony civ. The Urochrony bear civ. Koreans, they're staying here. I don't think there's any reason to move them outside of there for right now. Not really. No, not really. Yeah, nah, not really. There's still peak civ for like everything, yeah. Yep. Koreans are gonna be like, yep. You think so? Just barely? Alright, well we'll keep I guess you're right. Yeah. Just slightly. Just slightly. Yeah, I guess Korea is a civ in their own regard. Yeah, no, you're kind of right. It was either going to be at the tail end or really strong or up there, so we may as well put them up there just to highlight how good they are. What makes Korea good is they have like free villagers plus longbowmen, to the point that they don't even need muskets. So, yeah. Yeah. Korea's kind of a funny civ because, well, they are considered OP. It's not like they're cheating either, if that makes any sense. Because if you're a really skilled player, you can often play around them and stuff. So, yeah. Because when I face people like Ungars and stuff, they still beat me playing the Korean when I play the Koreans. So, yeah, it's a tough one to call. Well, their units and 13 free pikes is absolutely. Oh yeah, the pikemen. That's right. The Opolshenets with the Russian consulate. That's true. Yeah. Yeah, most definitely. Koreans is a good civ to play if you don't know much about the game. They're really beginner friendly, and they can help you to be a good asset for the team. Yeah, most definitely. But be forewarned though, if you're dealing with more skilled players, it's not like an instant cheat win civ like Uzbeks are. So you do need to put a little bit of work into them and a bit of micro and stuff. Yeah, it's obviously a lot less severe than Uzbeks, but I get what you mean. Yeah. I think what they do is they just adjust the Grand Palace like villager train rate a bit and maybe make the longbowmen slightly more expensive or something. Because the Myung stats are literally the same as that of a longbowman from vanilla. So the stats themselves aren't the problem. It might just be they might need slightly higher costs based on the circumstances or something. Yeah. I think it's just circumstances that makes Korea the way that they are. The individual pieces are fine, but it's just the circumstances that just makes them a bit tougher. Yeah, to deal with. Yeah. Portuguese. Let's see Portuguese here. Portuguese we had ahead of Canada because of their whole town center play stuff. They didn't receive any changes in this patch, so I think we'll just leave them where they are. Being able to get free covered wagons with each age up is brutal, and being able to turtle up like that is insane. So, yeah, I don't see a reason why to mess with the Portuguese standing at 8 point. Yeah, no, most definitely not. All right, so now we're looking at Romania. How about Romania? Romanians we had in C tier, pretty low on the totem pole. I would say probably Romanians would be somewhere around here. I might put them ahead of Bulgaria, maybe. Yeah, no. I'll put them right here. Because Romania gets some really cool stuff, but they're just a little bit slow to get going. Yeah, I had some pretty good builds for Romania, just, it's not viable for every game. And I feel like sometimes their roster can sometimes be a bit suboptimal because their Vanators start out with 18 range instead of 20, which is kind of problematic. The Dorabon have less HP but more hand damage, which, come on, people. Who only cares about muskets fighting cavalry and stuff in hand combat? Like, really? Yeah, no. So I feel like Romania just has some disadvantages in the roster and some other things, and that kind of keeps them on the lower end. And the only reason I'm putting Bulgaria ahead of them is because Bulgaria early game is way better than Romania's early game. Yeah, it's way safer. It's way safer for that. If it was totally like treaty or something, I would put Romania higher, but because you have to consider like the early game aspect, Romania can be a bit of a drag. Oh, so the second Ethiopia was supposed to be the Incas. All right, good to know. All right, so we'll do Incas next then. If that's true. All right, sounds good. Okay, so yeah, I'm just gonna leave Romania here. And I think Romania got any updates, right? The only update Romania got this patch was the Gypsies finally had their own textures and model and stuff, which is super awesome. You might should maybe put them up in the tier list just for that. Yeah, but no. Now we're gonna do Inca. Inca. Looking at the Incas. Incas. Where did we have them last time? We had the Incas in the A tier, right ahead of the Portuguese. Yeah, and I don't think they changed anything in their balance at all. So we'll probably just do that again here. Yeah, Incas, as you know, broken spearmen, scary units. Okaruna's good too. They got really good gold economy, and then they get to Great Warriors. They're one of the few civs that practitions the snipers. So, yeah, Incas are always a very strong play and competitive for sure. You gotta watch out for an Inca player that knows what they're doing. Yeah. And how about Russians? Russians, let's see. Ruskies. So the Russians we had behind the British in A tier, and ahead of Spain, Peru, and a lot of other thingies. Let's get back to the window thingy. So Russians, we're gonna put probably. Let me see. I think we put Russians like. I'll put them here. I think. Yeah, that's fine. Because Russians are still a really good aggro civ. They get good play with their Cossacks and front Tovics and stuff. Yeah. Because see, that's the thing that sets apart our Russians a bit different than the Asian dynasties. Is these Russians have Royal Guard muskets, the Frontovics for the line infantry. Plus, they get pikemen instead of halberds, which can be much more spammable, I think. Plus, they got the cool play with the Plastunis and stuff, and yeah. Plus, they got some new natives too in the home city. They got access to the Hadid Dragoons, just like the Uzbeks have access to. So now they got a better native unit to spam with infinite shipments, I think, which is great. So yeah, no, I think they're a pretty strong contender. And I think since they're good on land maps, that makes them more consistent than Greeks. So we'll just put them there. Yeah. Reason I'm keeping India and the other ones ahead, though, is I think they just have better stuff to work with. Yeah, probably. Let's go on to the Spaniards, Hispania. So last time we had them behind the British and Russians and between the. Okay. So Spanish, Hispania. So Hispania will be going to. I'm trying to see here. I might put him here. just behind France because I think the French technically had the better units across the board and more variety. But the Spanish have some strong builds, like Fast Fortress into 3 Falconets using the female Egypt politician, because they use that Egypt politician to get a free Falconet with the age up, and then they ship in 2 Falcons, and now you got a 3 Falconet push, which is really good. They also have strong gameplay with the line infantry because it can beef them up with the missionaries, which now have the unction ability automatically included. Plus, the Spain and Moors Liberty has cuirassiers in their roster instead of lancers, making them quite good. They get a cool ultimate unit called the Bador, which is just a lancer, but it speeds up the movement speed of all cavalry, which is cool. Yeah, no. I'll put them right there. Plus, they're one of the only civs to get access to a World War I unit in Age 4. They can get a dreadnought on the water and pay a ton of gold for it. It's pretty cool, huh? Yeah, no, most definitely it is. Alright, so now we're going to be looking at, what are we looking at now? Swedish. Last time we had Swedish behind the Ethiopians because of their various stuff. I mean, I'll probably put the Swedish right here behind the Dutch, honestly. Because here's the thing, the Dutch and the Swedish have a very similar advantage in early game, which is really fast moving muskets. But the Dutch just have the better odds because theirs have extra range too, and like special hybrid dragoon stats built in. Because I think I didn't touch on is that the flank war for the Dutch is a hybrid between a musket and a dragoon. In range, it has anti-dragoon multipliers, and then in melee, it's got all the benefits of a musketeer. So yeah, technically the flank war is like a much better thing to run than the Swedes. The only thing that makes the Swede Beveranger better is its early game trash unit functionality because it's a food and wood cost. Plus, it's not a doesn't have a skirmish tag, so it won't like die to lanceros as easily. Yeah. Yep, some interesting stuff, right? Yeah, no, most definitely. What else? What else am I thinking of? Trying to think this out. Swedish also has good wood eco with the sawmills. That's why I like them as well. Also, the Nordenfelt guns are pretty good. Their assault cav, the Hussatruppe are technically weaker but cheaper cuirassiers. Yeah, Swedes are pretty solid usually. Pretty much, yeah. Okay, so I think this is obvious at this point, but Uzbeks are going up here. If you're still running Uzbeks, you're probably cheating unless it's like a big team game or something. Because Alucard just pointed out to me that because the auto gather on the Karakul sheep is considered a fattening process, it means that the nomads plus the nomadic pastoralism is actually increasing the gold trickle on the sheep. Plus the madrasa texts are too, and leading to some godly gold trickles that like ruins most 1v1 games and makes them unwinnable. Yeah. Yep, I knew that the Uzbeks were doing something crazy. I just didn't know it was that bad, so yeah. Plus you got all the other cool stuff like the Turkmen with the Almans and well that stuff's fine. It's just the Karakul shape that makes it into a cheat civ, yeah. But other than that though, I mean Uzbeks are a pretty fun civ. Like they get the 3 different types of nomads that do different things, which is totally cool. They get a pretty cool roster of like foot archers. They're the only Middle East civ to have like an archer unit out of their forge, which is awesome. So yeah, just fix that Karakul sheep thing and then they can maybe go back down to really strong, baby. Yeah, most definitely. Let's go to Zulu. Zulu we had an S tier ahead of like Japan and Haiti and stuff and ahead of a lot of these civs. Honestly, Zulu are gonna be probably here because of their aggro ability. Because there's been times when I've been able to kill a starting Ethiopia player with Zulu, just rushing them out and slaughtering them. So yeah, Zulu needs a good honorable mention there, I think, for sure. And you know what? We could even put them ahead of the Swedes, I think, because of the early game build up. Yeah, no, I might put them ahead of the Swedish, actually. Yeah, no. That's what we'll do. We'll do that. Similarly, we have the Haiti Civ, very similar concept, kind of a Zulu-esque aggro civ, but with the Latin American culture behind it. They were like 2 pegs behind the Zulu, but in ahead of the Belgians. So we're gonna put them. I think we'll put them probably here, but it's tough to say because you got the good aggro, and then you have the beautiful late game with the McCandle plot on the Mushateros. Yeah, just doing critical strikes. So that's good. Other things to consider since we've last covered them. Also, the fact that they have 5 gold works now instead of 3 because they fixed the rum distillery card to be a separate build limit. That's another good thing. And another thing that makes Haiti like a really good mention for really strong is the fact that they have conversion of units through their ultimate building. They can take their Lacau and they can convert Zeppelins. They can convert tanks. They can convert dreadnoughts. They could literally be behind in Great War Age and still be able to convert somebody's aircraft and then use it to somehow survive. Be it very slowly because it's one building, but hey, imagine like doing a 1v1 against Haiti and you get the Great War Age advantage and then they just convert your Zeppelin and kill you with it and wipe out your economy. That's pretty scary. I mean, it's a rare niche situation, but it's good. Now we have Germany. Now, Germany we had last time is one of the best S-tier civs, ahead of really everyone except for the Dutch, the Ottomans, and the Koreans. We're going to put them... We actually haven't seen a lot of Germans playing these Middle East civs. We're going to keep them in that same ranking just because they didn't receive a lot of stuff in this patch. And we know that they're by and far going to be a great civ. Because again, they are they're basically the vanilla British with the manor booming, except that their houses are called Mites Casernes. So when you build one of them, you get a free villager, supermass. They get line infantry now. They get hussars now. They're both Royal Guard. They get Krupp factors that make for artillery. Do I need to say more? They're a great civ, and one of Cap's most favorite civs. All right, and now we're gonna look at the Chinese. We had them ahead of the Indians, I think, because I think we settled the score that China is a better civ than India in 1v1 usually. So we will keep that the case here and put them right here. Yeah. Because the one thing I think is worth considering here, and it might be enough to keep them in that spot, is the Boxer Rebellion card now affects Jungs, those emergency units that they get from the villages. So now, technically, you can spam Jungs again, which was something you could do before, but they sort of nerfed by making them lose HP. Now you can undo it with the card, so that's good. Haudenosaunee. Haudenosaunee we had just below India as a really good aggro civ from vanilla. I think we keep them there. I think this is good. We'll just leave them where they are. They didn't receive any real changes, so that's just fine for them. Great. Now we're on Japanese. Let's see where we're at with Japan. Japan we had just behind Zulu, but ahead of Haiti. Japan I'm willing to put here. I'll put them right here. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I'll put them right there. Because here's the thing. We have learned how good Japan really is with those Kie skirmishers in the past few months with Varingo. And they really are scary units, man. Oh no. Yeah. Yeah. And I think this is a good spot because if you're gonna kill Japan, it's gonna be with all the civs up here. Uzbeks, Afghans, British, Koreans, Ethiopia, Germany, and Dutch, yeah, no. And Zulu. Zulu can aggro them too, so, yeah. most definitely. Yeah. Otherwise, it's just vanilla Japanese for the most part. So yeah, which by itself is very good. It's just that they have really cool military now, and yeah, I think also now they get breech floaters from the arsenal. So technically, the Japanese skirms are even better now because they get breech floaters, so they can shoot faster now too, which is good. Yeah. All right. So Maori, Maori, in realistic terms, in practical terms, are probably going to be here still. Because here's the thing. I think they're a paper tiger a lot of the time. People see them do really well in some instances and think they're really good, but they're still rather vulnerable in so many areas. Like, if you get on top of a Maori base early on, you can kind of cream them like a cream pie. Yeah, no. Maori's best chance is like Fast Fortress into Purakumas and stuff, but that can be countered as well. I feel like, yeah, Maori is too niche, just like Australia. But even more so because, yeah, no, they have too many they have too many vulnerabilities to like put any higher, I think. Yeah, but that's niche though. That doesn't work every single time. If I was to play like a really hyper aggressive like Zulu, China, I kill Kaiser's Maori within minutes if I play Chinese or Zulu or something. It's only if you give him time for a fast fortress. If you don't give him time for a fast fortress, he he kind of like loses everything that he can do, and it just like, yeah, no, yeah. You know what? You need a lot of stuff going in your favor to make that work. It's actually it's like a one trick pony type thing, and if you take any cog out of the wheel, it just goes spinning into the road, basically. Yeah, because I have tried Maori before and tried to run those builds, and sometimes it goes good and sometimes it goes bad. Yeah, I feel like they need to be better in most general games, though. That's their problem. They shouldn't be a one trick pony where it feels like they only do good some of the time. In certain situations, they need a little bit more control in the early game, I think, to make the early game feel a bit safer. I think before I really, yeah, because it could be a little bit dangerous to go with. I think that's just my opinion. Mapuche, Mapuche. Where did we put them last time in this set? So last time we had Mapuche just behind Greeks, just ahead of Greeks. I'm gonna take a strong move and probably put the Mapuche. I'll put them like. I'm trying to think. How do I do this? I'll put them right here. I'll put them ahead of some of these other civs, but not much farther ahead. Because I think when we last did the Mapuche, that was before they got the fire pit access. Now that they have the fire pit, now they're looking really swell because now they can boom with their villagers a lot easier. They can get really good production on their military. Now they have an actual scout unit with anti-skirmish multipliers, so they're no longer relying on assault to kill infantry. Now they can go scout. That was a huge buff. Yeah. Plus they get a cool like anti like spy like anti mercenary freebie unit from the fire pit now. So that's good. Definitely good. What else? Mexico. Mexico we had just ahead of Zulu, right? And I think we're gonna keep them up there. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, we'll keep them there. You know why? Because they did receive changes this patch, but it wasn't. It wasn't in a way that really affected them godlike, you know. So the thing about Mexico is, basically, now volantes are anti-personnel. So normally that would make Mexico OP because of their card, which let me check the patch notes and see what it's called. What was that card that Mexico got? Trying to find it here. Trying to climb up the thing and find what that card is called. Yep, Saint Chamon Mondragon. It's one that added more like splash and anti-infantry to the Volantes. So now, normally that would make Volantes like godlike, right? So you know what the developers did? Because now the Volantes are basically just like that card now, by default. They took the card and changed it to give you a Great War Age field gun instead of like giving you that upgrade effect. So now basically Mexico has the same Volantes they already did, if not slightly better. And they get a card that gives them access to a World War I gun in Age 4 now. So I think it's pretty fair to keep them here. Be it they might be slightly better now in some situations because of that World War I field gun making a difference. Because remember, field guns and Great War Age can kill cavalry too. So we might see that like winning fast industrials and yeah. Plus the fact that you don't have to like run that card anymore to get good Volantes against infantry probably makes Mexico have a bit more of a flexible deck. So yeah, Mexico's probably looking slightly better now, honestly. Thing that of course that makes Mexico up in this ranking is the fact that they have all those Presidios allowing them to queue up multiple vills at the same time. The fact that they have so many good like military card upgrades. They have good economy cards, good immigrant selection, especially with the Cara Pintada now into Chinese immigrants. So now we might be seeing more Chinese immigrant players in Mexico, so even better. Now we're looking at the Ottomans here. Let me pull the Ottomans up. Ottomans last time we had ahead of Germany but behind the Dutch, because Dutch can sometimes like be a real threat to the Ottoman Janabis play. I think that's the same case. I mean, Ottomans, to be fair... Alright, we'll put that right there. Ranking because they are really good with the Jan Abbas gameplay that Cap especially showcased to us, as well as others like Jesu Cristo. Ottomans in general are going to be really one of your best early game civs, and that's what makes them good. You know, late game with Ottomans is severely hampered because Wars of Liberty made a change to make it so that they don't have veteran and guard upgrades anymore, but they get an Imperial Age upgrade that's like double effective. The one good thing though about the Ottomans now is that in the patch notes they did get new cards. Let me read it to you right now so you can see it, because this is actually kind of good for them slightly. Trying to scroll up, I think it, yeah. I have to scroll up a little bit up these pages right now to get there. So now, Ottomans got an infinite shipment of Druze, which is a hand unit. So they got infinite melee natives in Age 4. They also got 5 Alawite natives and 8 Alawite natives. So they got more native cards. Ottomans never had native cards in the vanilla game. Now they do. That's a good advantage. Plus they got new mercenary cards too. New mercenary cards to their deck. Infinite 10 Bashi Bazook, West Caucasian Mercenary Army, Mesopotamian Mercenary Army, and Emirati Mercenary Army, making their mercenary decks a lot better now. Yep. And they also got individual shipments of the Dariata, Budo, Daibet, and Arnott, giving them even more mercenary cards in general. So, yeah. Oh, Peru has good. Yep, indeed they do. That's right, Ishmael. That's absolutely right. They do get a good Grenadier. We're going to be touching on Peru right after we do Paraguay. So, where did we put Paraguay last time? We put them just below Chile, right? So, what I'm going to do this time is say, you know what? You know what we're going to do? We're going to put them probably ahead of all these. I might even put them ahead of Persia. Yeah. Because it's come to my realization now that Paraguay has actually gotten a lot better in a lot of situations. I think a big factor is that they improved the Arsenal Tech buckshot. So instead of doing splash damage now, it does more accuracy with its bullets. Meaning the bullets actually, all the bullets from its splash attack actually hit their targets now, which I think is a lot better of effect. Because while the extra spread was nice, having most of them miss was not that good. But now that the Escobateros actually are more on target now, that's a lot better. Some other considerations as well. Volantes are now an anti-personnel unit, which means the heavy works technology for the Volantes, the thin cannons that gave the Volantes +2 range. Much better now. Yeah, much better now. Oh, most definitely. Yeah. The one thing that was a slight negative was the Cohetes had become a culver and mortar hybrid now, which means they can no longer siege buildings in Age 3. But they actually improved in their culverin functionality of killing artillery now, which is super good. Yeah. Because a lot of the time when we were using Cohetes with Paraguay, we were using them to kill enemy artillery because they had that range and the crush damage. It feels like making them into like a culver and mortar hybrid has actually made them more efficient in the way we actually use Cohete rockets, you know. Because, you know, Cohete rockets did not have a lot of good splash before, so they were rarely ever used against, like, personnel. They were actually more used against buildings and artillery. So, in a way, the developers kind of improved the Cohete of what they were used for anyways, which is good. Plus, Volantes having more range now. It makes them more useful. And, yeah, so many good things I could talk about with that. Peruvians. Peruvians, I will probably place... Let me think. Let me think about Peru. I might put Peru like just either here or here, I think. I'll put them here, I think, yeah. Because I just think because of the way this tier list is scaled, I think they might be good down in the middle area here. Yeah, most definitely. Mainly because I think Paraguay is still a more strong pick than the Peruvians in 1v1. But I do think the Peruvians are competent and strong enough to like cause problems for the Persians and stuff. Yeah, no. Because I've seen that in the gameplay, right? Remember when we did the gameplay with the with Ringo and how close it was in the matchups between Persia and Peru? I think that's a fair spot to put them in, honestly, just slightly ahead of Persians, because Peru can do some good Mushatero and Grenadier plays that really punish the Persians well, as well as a lot of the civs on that good ranking. They're definitely better than Argentina now and Chile and Austria-Hungary, I think. So that's a good spot because, you know, all these civs up here really have ways of dealing with Peru just fine, but all these ones down here are not so much. So I think this is a good point right here. Yeah. The one thing that Peru has now, which makes them better now, is a few things. I'm going to point them out right now. They removed the Pedrero because now the White Cannon is sort of that culver and mortar hybrid, right? But they added the Volante back in. And they updated some of the trade-off investment techs. Weapon reinvestments available at the foundry now makes Volante shoot faster in exchange for movement speed. That's pretty good. I mean, allowing Volantes to shoot faster, that's awesome. Improving the rate of fire on a cannon. Cannon White. So the Cannon White or the Grieve Cannon has a few effects now. So it's reworked into the new Howitzers or Culverin mortar hybrid type. Increase the positive effects of railroad investments that affect the Cannon White and reduce the negative ones. So now, basically, that trade-off card's going to just overall be more beneficial to the White Cannon, making it better. The Canyon White, yeah. And then for recycling railroad tracks, you know the card that would cheapen Peruvian artillery? It's been changed to affect the Canyon White, so the Grieve Cannon, and make it cost half, but now it doesn't affect other cannons at all. So if you cared about more the broad effect of the card, it's now weaker, but if you use it specifically for the case of like getting more culverins and mortars out onto the field, now the card is now better. Yeah. So overall, Peru's looking pretty solid, I think. Yeah. And now we are going to be looking at Serbians, the Serbs. So the Serbians, they didn't receive any changes this patch. And where did we keep them the last time on here? The Serbs were just behind Peru. I think that's probably okay. I think that's probably fine. Yeah, because I really would like to put Serbians in like really strong, but sometimes it just feels like, there's still ways of going around them and stuff. And yeah, I'll keep them down there. That's fine. That's okay. That's fair, I think. Because if anything, Peru got better, whereas Serbia stayed the same. So, but then again, like, do we really want Serbians ahead of the Persians? Maybe just because of their late game with the whole Iron Legion card and stuff like that, Iron Regiment or whatever. Yeah, no, that it's basically a card that allows recruits their muskets to actually gain more attack and hit points when nearby ones die and stuff. Yeah, so I might just keep them ahead of Persians just for that fact. Yeah, so that should be fine there. The Lakota. What about Lakota? I will probably let me think. Let me think what to do with the Lakota. It's a tough one. I think they're actually worse than the United States in matchups that I've seen. But they might be easier to run than the Bolivians, maybe. Just maybe. So I'll put them down there. They don't have a lot of strong bonuses anymore. Bow riders don't feel as good because now they don't counter hussars anymore at range. So yeah, Lakota are looking a little bit bland. It's not that the Lakota concept is bad. It's just that they don't have anything new going for them like all these other civs do in Moore's Liberty. Man, it's just that they've sort of fallen out of favor. I think. Really, yeah, 100%. They used to have some OP siege stats, but that's gone now, so that's not good. Yeah, basically just that. Tupi. Where did we have Tupi last time? Tupi was B tier. Yeah, very nice. We have between Paraguay and Brazil. All right, let's see if we can figure this one out. I would say probably. I'll put them right here because if Paraguay is better than all these other civs, then Tupi's slightly better. Because we figured out that Tupi aggro does destroy Paraguay and things below it there. Yeah. I don't know because I guess some people claim that the macro is too good or something. I don't know Because you know what? You're right. I mean, I really want them to go here, though, because I feel like their macro isn't cheating. They technically have proper stats and stuff and all their stuff, so I really don't want them to go up there at all. No. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. You're right. I feel like some people just hate dealing with Korea so much that they want them to be considered to be cheating. I don't know. It's like if you look at all the individual pieces of Korea, they're perfectly like normal. It might just be because of the combination of which they get them, which it's really impossible to do anything with without reworking the civ entirely and changing what they're about and stuff. So I don't know. Yeah, yeah. I don't even. Yeah, because the thing is, if you play against a skilled opponent like Ungers or going to stand really skilled people, they can still kill you if you play Korea. So I mean, I'm not gonna call them a cheat civ. Do you like Maduro? Uh, do you like Maduro? I don't know. Do you like him? I guess he's living with us in America now, so I guess that's cool. I don't know where he's gonna be staying at, but yeah, that's definitely. Yeah. All right. So now the last one, Uruguay. What do we do with Uruguay? There's so much I want to like plan on this one. Uh, in some ways they should be up here because they literally can like destroy Afghans, but in reality, I think they go. Wait a minute, no, not there. Let me put it back. Can I put it back over here somewhere? I'm trying to put it back on the. I don't know. Let's put it here for now, and then we'll decide. Where was it placed last time? So Uruguay was placed ahead of France and Bolivia, and let's look at the patch notes. So all they really did with Uruguay this patch was add new voice lines. Companion added new voice lines thanks to Cato from Age of the World. Pequeño added new voice lines and variations between Portuguese and Spanish from Age of the World, and then Blandingui added new voice lines thanks to KO from Age of the World. So no new voice lines. That's awesome. It's pretty good. So honestly, I think Uruguay should go with the whole outlaw rework and stuff. Probably is gonna go like ahead of a lot of these civs here. Is it better than Haiti though? Is it better than Haiti? This is a tough one. I don't know if we should put it here or I might put it ahead of Haiti just because I feel like the late game scaling favors Uruguay more because of the shadow teching. Yeah. I might do that. Yeah. Yeah, no. Yeah, because the thing is, Uruguay's got like two factors. It's got good outlaw gameplay and good immigrant gameplay because they can train their immigrants plus send them in battalions from the colonies. And obviously, you don't have to upgrade immigrants. They're just shower tech for food, so you don't have to pay the wood and gold for them, making them really good. Their outlaws are phenomenal. Oh yeah, no, they get good outlaws too. And when they scale them up with the upgrades, both from the home city and from the town hall, good stuff. You can also make them even stronger by going with the Polish immigrants in age 2 or whatever. So yeah, no, I mean, yeah, yeah, most definitely. I think. Hmm. Yeah. Because the thing is, I've seen Uruguay like humble the Afghans before in my games against Zelda Verde. So yeah, no, Uruguay's a. And you know why Uruguay is so high up there as well? It's because of the Blandingui gameplay that Alucard so graciously showed us yesterday, and that we saw Kaiser use the other day against my Persians. Because those Blandinguis are spooky units, yeah. The only reason I'm not sticking them up ahead of Korea is just because, the early game is a lot slower than obviously the Koreans, so. While their military could be spookier, that's probably going to be where they stand. Yeah. All right. I think we got ourselves a tier list here. Unless any of you have objections at all. Do you have any objections to any of the placements that I put? You think we need to modify any of these? Any arguments that you have that were not already, explained at the time? No objections? All right. I think we'll just leave it here and call it a day. What I'm going to do is I am going to take a screenshot of this and I'm going to post it to YouTube as a post. And I can also put it up on Discord servers too so they can see it. Now, when you're playing the mod, you can see which civs belong where. If you need a stronger civ, pick really strong. If you want to be a cheater that needs to touch grass, go pick the Uzbeks. If you want to cause needless suffering to your gameplay, play the Egyptians, the Australians, and the Maori. If you want something in the middle, maybe do some of these. So yeah, it was a good tier list. Took a lot longer than I thought. Probably because we had 4 more civs to discuss that were totally new. But I hope that this tier list will hold true for a long time. At least until the next major patch comes out that adds Egypt, or re-adds Egypt as a Middle East civ. And then, of course, after that, we'll probably have patches that add more civs to it and reworks. Well, probably after that, the Egyptian one, we'll have one that reworks Zulu and Ethiopians and adds more African civs, so that'll probably be the next big jump. So we'll have to see how that ends up affecting things. So yeah, I'm gonna say GG's and well played for right now. Signing off now from this stream. We might do some gameplay stream tonight around midnight or something, a little bit earlier.